Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen one tiny accident change everything? I'm not talking about a car crash or some dramatic fight. I mean something so small, so ordinary, that nobody in the room thought it mattered. But later, everyone realized. That was the moment when the truth began to break out. Now picture this. A young black waitress, tired but still holding it together. A pregnant woman, glowing in a silk dress, sitting with her husband in a fancy restaurant. One bottle of red wine, one slip of the hand, and suddenly splash! That deep red stain spreads across her dress, across her belly, across the silence of the room. The crowd gasps. The husband explodes. The waitress trembles. And what everyone thinks is just clumsy service is about to uncover something far, far bigger. Because here's the thing, that spill wasn't just an accident. It was the first crack in a secret no one wanted exposed. So don't go anywhere. This story isn't what you think it is. It was a Friday evening at a classy restaurant in downtown Atlanta, the kind of place where birthdays, anniversaries, and first dates were celebrated. Golden light glowed from chandeliers, reflecting softly off polished cutlery and tall glasses. A piano tune floated through the air while servers weaved between tables like dancers in a slow, graceful show. Among them was Danielle, a young black waitress, 26 years old, hair tied neatly back, moving fast, but with quiet elegance. Danielle had been working doubles for weeks, saving every dollar for nursing school. Her smile never slipped, even when she was exhausted. She had that kind of energy people noticed, warm, genuine, human. But tonight, she was running on fumes. Her section was full, and her manager had just added another table. Danielle's legs ached, her back screamed, but she pushed forward. That's what she did, she carried on. At one corner table sat a couple who stood out. The woman looked 7 months pregnant, resting one hand protectively on her belly. She wore a silky, light-colored dress, her blonde hair tied perfectly, and a small diamond ring shimmered under the chandelier. She looked polished, elegant, but not relaxed. Not at all. Her husband sat beside her in a crisp suit, tall, well-groomed, but distant. He scrolled through his phone more than he looked at her. The vibe between them wasn't what you'd expect from expectant parents out for dinner. Something was off, subtle but noticeable. Danielle approached, notebook in hand, smile steady. "Hi there, my name's Danielle. I'll be taking care of you tonight. Congratulations, by the way." She nodded softly toward the woman's belly. The pregnant woman gave a faint smile, polite but tight. "Thank you," she murmured. The husband didn't even glance up. Danielle carried on because that was her job. The couple ordered. The man asked for steak and a bottle of expensive red wine. The woman ordered a small salad and sparkling water. But then the man interrupted. "She'll have a glass of wine, too," he said flatly. Danielle froze for just a second. Her eyes flicked to the woman. The woman's lips tightened. Her eyes dropped. Then she gave the faintest nod, as if forced. Danielle hesitated. Every instinct in her screamed no. She's pregnant. But rules were rules. She couldn't argue. So she wrote it down. Later, Danielle returned with the bottle and 2 glasses balanced carefully on her tray. She weaved between crowded tables, her hands steady despite her aching muscles. But just as she reached the couple's table, it happened. Her elbow brushed against a chair that had been pushed too far out. The tray tilted. The bottle wobbled. And in a split second before she could stop it, deep red wine splashed across the tablecloth, across the woman's silk dress, across her belly. The restaurant froze. Gasps broke the air. The pregnant woman shot up in her chair, her hands flying to her stomach. The red stain spread quickly across her dress, looking almost like blood. Her breathing turned sharp, shaky. Danielle's heart dropped to the floor. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," she cried, fumbling for napkins. Her hands shook as she tried blotting the fabric. The husband finally looked up, his face twisted with anger. "Are you kidding me?" he shouted, his voice booming across the room. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I didn't mean to. It was an accident," Danielle stammered. "Let me fix this. I'll take care of it." But the man cut her off. Unbelievable. "My wife is pregnant!" What if the glass had broken? What if... His words spat venom. The manager rushed over, bowing and apologizing, promising dry cleaning, free meals, anything to calm the storm. The husband demanded Danielle's name, threatened her job, made a scene so loud heads turned from every table. But Danielle wasn't listening to him anymore. She was looking at the pregnant woman. And the woman wasn't furious. She wasn't screaming about the dress. She was pale, her eyes wide, not with anger, but with something closer to fear. Her hands pressed hard to her stomach. And when her eyes met Danielle's, there was something unspoken there. A look, a plea, not about the spill, not about the stain. It was as if her eyes whispered, "Don't leave me." Danielle didn't know why. She couldn't explain it. But she knew in that instant, this was not just about wine. This was about something hidden, something no one else saw yet. And that night, the truth was about to start leaking out, just like the wine across the tablecloth. And that was just the beginning. What looked like a clumsy mistake was about to uncover something much darker, much deeper. Stick with me, because once the truth comes out, you won't believe it. You know how sometimes, in the middle of a loud scene, one tiny detail stands out? Everyone else hears the shouting, the anger, the chaos, but you notice the silence. You notice the one person who isn't yelling, the one person who's too quiet. That silence can tell you more than 100 words ever could. And that's exactly what Danielle felt that night. Because while the husband shouted, threatened, and cursed, the pregnant woman didn't say a single word. She was silent. Too silent. The restaurant manager tried to calm things down. "Sir, please, we'll cover everything. We'll take care of the bill. Dry cleaning, anything you need." His hands moved nervously, sweat beading at his temple. But the husband wasn't done. His voice kept rising, sharp like broken glass. "This is unacceptable. My wife could have been hurt. This is incompetence!" Danielle stood frozen, clutching a wad of napkins. Her heart thudded in her chest. Every eye in the restaurant was still on her, but she couldn't stop staring at the woman in the wine-stained dress. The woman sat there rigid, her hands pressed against her belly, her eyes darting nervously between her husband and Danielle. She looked trapped, not embarrassed, not furious, trapped. And when their eyes met again, Danielle swore she saw it, a cry for help. Silent, desperate, hidden beneath a mask of calm. Danielle's chest tightened. She whispered, "I'm so sorry," again, her voice barely audible. But the words didn't feel like enough. They felt useless. Because deep down, Danielle knew this wasn't just about spilled wine. Something else was happening here. Something that had nothing to do with her clumsy mistake. She wanted to say something, to ask if the woman was okay, but her manager shot her a warning glare. It was the kind of look that said, "Don't make this worse." So Danielle bit her tongue. She stepped back, letting the manager handle the raging husband. But even as she did, her eyes stayed locked on the woman, and the woman's eyes stayed locked on her. "Get me another tablecloth now," the husband barked. "And make sure this one isn't ruined. My wife doesn't need more stress. Tonight." His voice dripped with sarcasm when he said wife, like it wasn't a title of love but a title of ownership. The manager scrambled to comply. Other waiters rushed to clear the mess, replacing the stained cloth with a clean one. Danielle helped silently, her hands trembling as she lifted the soiled fabric. When she reached for the wine bottle, the husband snapped, "Don't touch that! Haven't you done enough already?" Danielle froze, swallowing hard. She set the bottle back down and stepped away. The humiliation burned hot in her chest. But again, her eyes darted to the woman, and this time she saw the woman flinch. Not from Danielle, not from the mess, but from her husband's tone. It was subtle, a tiny recoil, a tightening of the shoulders. But Danielle saw it, and her gut twisted. The woman excused herself softly. I need to use the restroom." Her voice was so faint, it was almost drowned out by the background noise that had begun to return to the restaurant. Her husband didn't look at her. He just waved a hand dismissively, his eyes back, on his phone already. "Fine, go!" Danielle watched as the woman stood carefully, her dress still damp, and made her way toward the restroom. Her steps were slow, unsteady. And then, just before she disappeared around the corner, she glanced back. Her eyes locked with Danielle's again. And this time, Danielle didn't just imagine it. The look was clear. "Please, help me." Danielle's pulse raced. Her instincts screamed at her to follow. But her training, her fear of her manager, Her fear of losing the job she desperately needed, they all held her in place. She stood frozen, hands gripping her apron, staring at the corner where the woman had vanished. Her manager leaned toward her, whispering harshly, "Go to the kitchen. Take a break. I'll handle this." But Danielle couldn't move. She couldn't shake that look, that silent cry. And then, as if fate itself was pushing her, a thought hit her so hard it almost made her gasp. What if she's not okay? What if something's happening behind closed doors that no one sees? Danielle took a shaky breath. She told herself, if she comes back looking fine, I'll let it go. But if she doesn't, I can't stay silent. Minutes crawled by. The husband scrolled, ordered another drink, barely noticing his wife was gone. Finally, the woman returned. She walked slowly, carefully, her hand once again on her belly. But her eyes sought Danielle immediately. And in that brief moment as she passed the waitress, she whispered so low only Danielle could hear, "Please don't leave me alone with him." Danielle's world stopped. And just like that, the truth cracked open. Quiet, hidden in plain sight. Danielle had just been pulled into something far bigger than a spilled drink. A cry for help. A warning, a secret. And that's where things took a turn. A waitress, a stranger, suddenly carrying the weight of a secret she never asked for. What would you do if you were Danielle? Stay silent or step into danger? Sometimes, life gives you a choice you never asked for. Do you stay quiet and safe pretending you didn't see anything? Or do you take a step into the unknown, risking everything because deep down you know, someone needs you? That's the moment Danielle found herself in. One second, she was just a waitress who'd made a clumsy mistake. The next, a stranger had whispered words that carried the weight of fear, pain, and danger. "Please don't leave me alone with him." And in that moment, Danielle's life, and the woman's, took a sharp turn into something neither of them could control. Danielle froze. Her heart pounded so hard she thought the whole restaurant could hear it. She turned slightly, staring at the woman, as she slid carefully back into her chair across from her husband. The husband didn't notice anything. He was too busy glaring at his phone, muttering about bad service. He raised his glass of wine and took a long sip, completely unaware that his wife had just shattered the waitress's world with 6 quiet words. Danielle's hands were trembling. She felt dizzy. Did I really hear that? Did she actually say it? Or did I imagine it? But when the woman looked up at her again, just for a second, Danielle knew it was real. That wasn't the look of someone embarrassed about a stain. That was the look of someone begging for help. Danielle stepped back toward the service station, her mind spinning. What do I do? Her training screamed, "Stay professional. Don't get involved. Don't cause trouble." Her heart whispered, "She's in danger. Do something." She thought about her nursing dream. She thought about her rent. She thought about her manager's angry face, about being fired for overstepping. And then she thought about the woman's eyes, wide, scared, pleading. Danielle bit her lip. She couldn't ignore it. She grabbed a pitcher of water and forced herself to walk back toward the table. Her voice was steady, her face calm, but inside she was shaking. "Would you like some more water?" she asked softly, placing the pitcher down. The husband waved her away with a grunt, not even looking up. "We're fine." But the woman looked at Danielle, her lips trembling. Then very faintly she nodded. Just a small nod. A thank you without words. Danielle leaned in slightly, her voice just above a whisper. "Do you need me to call someone?" The woman's eyes widened. But before she could respond, her husband finally looked up. "What are you still doing here? Go." His tone was sharp, cutting like a knife. Danielle's stomach knotted. She straightened quickly, nodded, and walked away. But she knew now it was real. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. Back at the service station, Danielle gripped the edge of the counter, her knuckles white. "I can't just leave her. I have to do something." "But what?" Her coworker, Maria, noticed her pale face. "You okay?" she asked. Danielle forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But she wasn't tired. She was scared. Scared for a woman she didn't even know. Then an idea sparked. Danielle reached for a small notepad, the kind she used for orders. She tore out a page and, with shaking hands, scribbled quickly, "Do you need help? I can call someone for you." She folded the note small, slipped it into her apron pocket, and waited. When she returned to the couple's table with their food, Danielle moved carefully. She placed the husband's steak in front of him, then the woman's salad. And as she set down the fork beside the woman's plate, she slid the folded note under the napkin. Smooth, quick, hidden. Her heart pounded in her throat. If the husband noticed, it could blow up everything. The woman froze for just a second. Then casually, she pulled her napkin onto her lap. Her hand brushed the paper. Danielle saw the tiniest flicker of relief flash across her face. It was working. But danger was never far away. The husband frowned suddenly. "What took so long with the food?" he demanded, his eyes narrowing on Danielle. Danielle swallowed. "I'm sorry, sir, the kitchen was a little backed up. I made sure your order was prioritized." He glared at her for another second, then turned back to his steak. But Danielle felt her whole body trembling. That glare wasn't just annoyance. It was suspicion. She forced herself to walk away, but inside she was screaming. "Please, please let her read it. Please let her be safe." Minutes passed like hours. Danielle served other tables, smiled, poured drinks, but her eyes kept darting back to the couple. Finally, she saw it. The woman lifted her napkin slightly. Beneath the table, her hand unfolded the note. Her eyes scanned it quickly. And then she looked up at Danielle. And with the tiniest motion, almost invisible, she nodded. Yes. Danielle's heart skipped a beat. She had her answer. The woman needed help. But how? How could Danielle help without putting them both in danger? If she called the police and the husband found out, it could get worse. If she confronted him, he could explode right there in the restaurant. Danielle's mind raced. She had stepped into a storm with no map, no plan. And now, with one silent nod, a stranger's safety rested in her hands. And that's where the stakes skyrocketed. Danielle now knew the truth. But knowing is one thing, acting is another. You ever been in that moment where you know the truth, but knowing the truth puts you in danger? That's where Danielle was now. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She wasn't just serving food. She was standing in the middle of a storm, holding a secret note that could change everything. The pregnant woman had nodded. She needed help, and now it was all on Danielle. Danielle's stomach twisted. She had to act. But how? She couldn't just grab her phone and dial 911 in front of the husband. She couldn't just walk up to the woman and say, "Hey, let's get you out of here." That would make things worse. She thought about slipping away and calling quietly from the back. But even that felt risky. If the husband saw her disappear too long, he might get suspicious. Her pulse pounded in her ears. One wrong move and this man could snap. Back at the table, the husband carved into his steak with mechanical precision. His jaw worked tight, his eyes darting around the restaurant as if everyone was wasting his time. Every now and then, he'd glance at Danielle, sharp and suspicious, like a hawk circling above. The woman barely touched her salad. She sat stiffly, eyes down, one hand always resting protectively on her stomach. And Danielle noticed something chilling. Every time she shifted in her chair, the husband's eyes flicked toward her, not in a loving, worried way, in a controlling, calculating way, like he was measuring her every move. Danielle's chest tightened. This wasn't just strict. This was something darker. Danielle ducked back into the kitchen, pretending to grab extra napkins. But really, she was thinking fast. I can't let her leave here with him, not without trying something, but how? She considered talking to her manager, but fear stopped her. Her manager cared about keeping the restaurant's reputation clean, not about messy personal problems. If Danielle told him, he might brush it off, or worse, alert the husband. No, she had to be smarter than that. Then, as her eyes fell on the old landline phone hanging on the kitchen wall, an idea sparked. It wasn't much, but it was something. Danielle waited until the kitchen was loud, pots clanging, chefs shouting orders. Then she slipped to the phone. She dialed 911, her hands trembling so badly she almost misdialed. When the dispatcher answered, Danielle whispered, "This is Atlanta downtown. Bella Luna restaurant. There's a pregnant woman here. I think she's in danger. Please send someone, but please don't make it obvious." She gave the address quickly, then hung up before anyone noticed. Her chest heaved. It was a risk, but at least now help was on the way. When Danielle returned, her smile was back in place, but her insides churned. "Is everything okay with your meal?" she asked, her voice calm. The husband squinted at her. "We'll let you know if we need you." "Stop hovering." Danielle nodded quickly, stepping back. But just as she did, the woman glanced up at her. Their eyes met. And this time, Danielle gave the smallest nod. "Help is coming." The woman's lips parted slightly as if to breathe out relief. Minutes ticked by like hours. The restaurant buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses. But for Danielle, every sound felt muffled under the weight of waiting. Any second now, officers would arrive. But what if the husband noticed them first? What if he grabbed his wife and walked out before they came in? Danielle's nerves stretched thinner and thinner. She hovered nearby, pretending to check other tables. But her eyes never strayed far from that corner booth. And then it happened. The husband pushed back his chair abruptly. "We're leaving," he announced. Danielle's stomach dropped. No, not yet. "Please, not yet." He slapped a credit card on the table without even looking at the bill. "Bring me the receipt now." Danielle snatched the card quickly, her hands sweating. She rushed it to the register, fumbling with the machine. Her heart pounded louder than the clatter of dishes. She prayed, come on, where are they?" As Danielle hurried back with the receipt. She noticed the woman's hands trembling as she tried to stand. Her dress was still damp, clinging to her. She moved slowly, carefully, as if every step carried the weight of dread. And then, under the cover of the table, Danielle saw her hand slip something small onto the edge of the chair. A folded napkin. Danielle's breath caught. She pretended to adjust the chairs after they stepped away, her fingers brushing the napkin. She palmed it quickly, sliding it into her apron before anyone saw. The husband stormed toward the door, his wife trailing silently behind. Him. Danielle's stomach twisted as she watched them leave. The police still weren't there, but she had the napkin. She rushed into a corner, unfolded it with shaking hands, and read the shaky handwriting inside. 3 words. 3 words that made her blood run cold. "He will hurt me." Danielle's chest heaved as the words blurred in front of her eyes. The woman was gone. The husband had her, and the police hadn't arrived in time. Now Danielle had a choice: stay silent and safe, or step into something far more dangerous than she ever imagined. And that's when everything snapped into focus. This wasn't just dinner gone wrong. This was a cry for survival. You know that moment where your heart screams one thing, but your head tells you the opposite? Your head says, stay safe, walk away. It's not your problem. But your heart says, if you don't do something, you'll never forgive yourself. That's where Danielle stood, staring at a crumpled napkin with 3 words that changed everything. "He will hurt me." And with those words, Danielle knew if she stayed silent, something terrible could happen. Danielle's chest heaved as she looked toward the door. The couple was already outside, the husband's hand tight on his wife's arm as he led her toward a sleek black SUV parked at the curb. She gripped the napkin so tightly it wrinkled in her fist. "Do something, Danielle. Don't just stand here." Her feet moved before her brain could catch up. She pushed through the restaurant doors and into the cool night air, her heart pounding so hard she felt it in her throat. The street was busy, cars honking, people laughing as they walked past, but all Danielle could see was that SUV. The husband opened the passenger door, practically guiding his wife in with force disguised as politeness. Just as Danielle stepped forward, blue lights flashed at the far end of the street. A police car pulled up, slowing to a stop. Relief washed over her, finally. But the husband noticed too. His jaw tightened. He slid quickly into the driver's seat, his wife already inside, and slammed the door shut. The SUV roared to life. "Wait!" Danielle shouted, but her voice was swallowed by the noise of the city. The SUV peeled away from the curb, slipping into traffic before the officers even reached the restaurant entrance. Danielle's heart sank. They were gone. The officers stepped out, adjusting their belts, scanning the scene. Danielle rushed to them, her hands shaking as she shoved the napkin toward them. "Please, you have to listen. That man, his wife, she's pregnant, and she's not safe. She gave me this." Her voice cracked as she held out the napkin. The officers exchanged a look. One of them, a tall man with tired eyes, took the note and read it. His expression darkened. "All right, slow down. Tell us exactly what happened." Danielle explained everything. The wine spill, the fear in the woman's eyes, the whispered plea, the note. Her words tumbled out so fast she could barely breathe. The officer nodded slowly, jotting details into a small notebook. "We'll look into it," he said, but his voice was calm, almost too calm. Danielle's frustration bubbled up. "No, you don't understand. She's in danger now. You can't just look into it." The officer's partner placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll do our best, miss, but without more information, names, addresses, it's difficult." "Do you know them personally?" Danielle's stomach dropped. "No, I just know what I saw. Please, you have to find her." The officers exchanged another look. Then the tall one said, "We'll file a report. If anything else happens, call us immediately." And just like that, they walked back to their car. Danielle stood frozen on the sidewalk, the napkin still crumpled in her hand. The SUV was gone. The police were gone. And the woman who needed her was gone, too. Her throat tightened, her eyes stinging with frustrated tears. She felt useless, powerless. What good was it to know the truth if nobody listened? But deep down, Danielle knew she couldn't just let it end there. She had seen too much. Back inside the restaurant, Danielle tried to focus on her tables, but her hands shook with every plate she carried. She replayed the moment again and again, the look in the woman's eyes, the desperate whisper, the shaky handwriting on the napkin. She couldn't sleep that night. Lying in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, the words echoed in her head, "He will hurt me." Finally, Danielle sat up, grabbed her phone, and opened the restaurant's reservation system. Every booking was logged with names and numbers. If she could find theirs, maybe she'd have a way to help. Her fingers scrolled through the night's list until she saw it. Reservation for 2, James Whitmore. Her breath caught. That has to be him. She searched his name online, and what she found made her blood run cold. James Whitmore wasn't just any man. He was a wealthy businessman, with photos of him at charity galas, cutting ribbons at events, shaking hands with politicians. On the surface, he was respected, trusted, untouchable. But as Danielle dug deeper, whispers surfaced. Anonymous reviews from former employees describing him as cruel, manipulative. One even mentioned seeing him lash out violently. Her stomach churned. This man looks like a hero in public, but behind closed doors, he's a monster. And now she knew. The pregnant woman wasn't just afraid. She was trapped. Danielle leaned back in her chair, her heart racing. She had his name. She had proof of her gut feeling. But what now? What could a single waitress do against a man like James Whitmore? The napkin still sat on her nightstand, its words burned into her mind. "He will hurt me." And that's where Danielle crossed the line from being a bystander to being part of the story. What would you do if you held a secret that could destroy a powerful man? Most people would stay quiet, stay safe, but not Danielle. Because sometimes silence is the same as guilt. And when she found James Whitmore's name, she knew this wasn't just about a spilled glass of wine anymore. This was about saving a life. Danielle barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the woman's trembling hands, her terrified eyes. She heard those 3 words again, "He will hurt me." By morning, Danielle had made up her mind. She wasn't going to wait for the police. She wasn't going to let this woman disappear into the shadows of James Whitmore's perfect public image. She was going to act. At a small coffee shop near her apartment, Danielle opened her laptop and dug deeper. Article after article painted James as a success story, self-made millionaire, philanthropist, family man. But on forums, buried in comments, Danielle found threads with darker whispers. "Worked for him once. Never again. Man's got a temper. Everyone in his office walks on eggshells. I saw him grab his wife's arm once at a gala. No one said a word." The deeper she went, the more her chest tightened. He had money. He had influence. And people were too afraid to speak up. Danielle realized she didn't even know the pregnant woman's name. She only knew her face, pale, exhausted, but so full of silent pleading. She scrolled through social media pages tagged with James Whitmore. And there it was, pictures of him at charity events, his arm tightly around a blonde woman in a silky dress. Her name, Claire Whitmore. Claire. Danielle whispered it under her breath. Somehow giving the woman a name made her feel closer, more real. Claire wasn't just the pregnant woman anymore. She was Claire, a person who needed saving. Danielle didn't have a plan yet. But she knew she had to see more, learn more. If James was hurting Claire, she needed evidence, something undeniable. So that night after her shift, Danielle did something she never thought she would do. She followed James. She recognized his black SUV instantly when it pulled up outside the restaurant again 2 nights later. This time, James came alone. He ate quickly, tipped poorly, and left without a word. Danielle watched him leave, then grabbed her coat and slipped outside, her heart hammering. She stayed a few cars back, her old Honda barely keeping up with his sleek SUV. He drove to a gated estate on the outskirts of the city. The house was massive, glowing with warm lights, but its tall iron gates gave it the feel of a fortress. Danielle parked down the road, her palms sweaty. From a distance, she could see the windows, golden rectangles against the night sky. And in one of them, on the second floor, she saw a shadow move, a woman's silhouette, Claire. Danielle's breath caught as she watched. Claire's shadow paced slowly back and forth, then stopped. For a long moment, she stood perfectly still, her head lowered. Then, suddenly, the shadow flinched. A second, larger figure appeared in the window. James. The two shadows moved, one standing tall and rigid, the other shrinking, backing away. Even from the street, Danielle could feel the tension. Her stomach knotted. And then, the light in the window went out. Darkness swallowed them both. Danielle's nails dug into her steering wheel. God, Claire, what's happening in there? She couldn't sit there and do nothing. But she couldn't storm the house either. That would be suicide. Instead, Danielle pulled out her phone and snapped photos of the estate. Of the car in the driveway, of the lit windows. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Evidence. She thought about posting online, but quickly shut that idea down. If James found out she was digging into him, she could be the next one in danger. She needed to be smart, careful. As she sat there, the SUV's headlights suddenly flashed on. Danielle's heart leapt into her throat. James was leaving. She ducked low in her seat as the black SUV rolled past her Honda. For a terrifying second, she thought he might stop, might notice her, but he didn't. He kept driving, disappearing into the night. Danielle sat frozen for several minutes, her chest heaving, her palms damp. She had just risked everything, and she knew this was only the beginning. As she finally drove away, Danielle's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at the screen and froze. It was a private message from an unknown number. The text read, "Stay out of this, Danielle. For your own good." Her blood turned to ice. Someone was watching her. What would you do if a stranger texted your name and told you to back off? Most people would panic, maybe even give up. But Danielle, she wasn't ready to walk away, not when a woman's life was on the line. The message scared her, yes. But more than that, it proved one thing. She was getting closer to the truth. Danielle stared at the glowing words on her phone. "Stay out of this, Danielle. For your own good." Her heart hammered. How did they know her name? How did they know what she was doing? Her hands trembled as she typed back, "Who is this?" No response. She typed again, "What do you want?" Still nothing. The 3 dots never appeared. Whoever it was had said all they needed to. That night, Danielle double-locked her apartment door. She pulled her curtains shut, checked every corner twice. But no matter what she did, she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her. Every sound outside made her flinch. Every shadow seemed to stretch too long. She lay awake, clutching her phone in her hand, whispering to herself, "Don't let them scare you. Claire needs you." But deep down, Danielle knew James Whitmore wasn't playing games. Over the next few days, little things began to happen. A black SUV parked across from her apartment for hours, engine running. Her phone buzzed with unknown calls at odd hours, always silent on the other end. Once, when she came out of her shift, she found a note under her windshield wiper. "Curiosity kills." Danielle's stomach dropped when she saw it. Whoever was behind this wasn't just warning her. They were watching her, following her. Danielle couldn't keep it bottled up anymore. She confided in her coworker and closest friend, Maria, after their shift one night. Maria's eyes widened as Danielle poured everything out. The wine spill, Claire's note, James's reputation, the warning texts. "Girl, this is way bigger than you," Maria whispered, glancing around nervously. "You're talking about a rich, powerful man. You can't just fight him." "I can't just ignore it either," Danielle argued. She's pregnant, Maria. She asked me for help. If I walk away now, what happens to her? Maria shook her head. Then you need help, real help. Not just the cops who brushed you off. You need someone who isn't afraid of James Whitmore. Maria connected Danielle with a local journalist, Ethan, a reporter known for chasing down corruption stories. At first, Ethan was skeptical. You gotta give me more than a napkin with a scribble, he said, tapping his pen against a notepad. But when Danielle told him about the SUV, the threatening texts, and James's public image versus the private whispers, Ethan leaned forward. His eyes lit up, not with disbelief, but with interest. You're telling me the city's golden boy isn't so golden after all, Ethan muttered. If you're right, this is big, but you need proof. Real, undeniable proof. Danielle nodded. Then I'll get it. That night, Danielle sat in her car again, parked near James's estate. But this time, she wasn't just watching. She had a plan. Her phone camera was ready. If she could catch even one moment, one photo or video of James hurting Claire, it would be the evidence Ethan needed. Her heart raced as she zoomed in on the second-floor window. She could see movement, faint but visible. Then a sound jolted her. A knock on her car window. Danielle screamed, dropping her phone. She turned and froze. A man in dark clothes stood outside her car, his face shadowed by a baseball cap. He tapped the window again, harder this time. Step out, he ordered, his voice low but firm. Danielle's chest tightened. She shook her head, locking her doors. The man leaned closer, his eyes glinting in the streetlight. You've been warned once. This is your last chance. Walk away. Danielle's hands fumbled with her phone, trying to hit record. I'm not scared of you, she whispered, though her voice shook. The man smirked. You should be. Then, just as suddenly as he appeared, he turned and walked into the night. Danielle sat frozen, her breath ragged, her whole body trembling. On her phone screen, the camera app was still open. She slowly lifted it and realized it had been recording the entire time. She had his voice. She had his threat. But was it enough to bring down James Whitmore? What if you had a recording that could bring down a powerful man, but using it could also put your life at risk? That's where Danielle was. Now, she had proof. She had his warning on tape. But with James Whitmore's power, proof might not be enough. Because sometimes the truth doesn't just set you free, it paints a target on your back. Danielle sat in her apartment, her hands shaking as she replayed the recording. The voice was low, threatening, undeniable. You've been warned once. This is your last chance. Walk away. Every time she heard it, her skin crawled. But at the same time, relief flickered in her chest. This wasn't just her word against James anymore. She had something solid. She sent the audio file to Ethan, the journalist. Within minutes, he called back, his voice sharp with urgency. Danielle, this is good, really good, but it's not enough. The public won't care about a shadowy threat unless we can tie it directly to James. We need Claire. We need her story. Danielle swallowed hard. Claire. That name haunted her. But how could she reach her when James kept her locked away like a prisoner? 2 days later, fate gave Danielle an opening. She was finishing her shift at the restaurant when the black SUV pulled up again. Her stomach flipped. James walked in, his presence commanding the room instantly. But this time, Claire was with him. She looked paler than ever, her steps slow, her dress hanging loosely around her growing belly. Danielle noticed faint bruises on her wrist, barely hidden under her sleeve. Their eyes met. And in that silent moment, Claire's lips barely moved. She mouthed one word. Help! Danielle's breath caught. When James excused himself to take a phone call outside, Danielle seized the chance. She slipped to Claire's table, kneeling down as if she were adjusting silverware. Claire, she whispered urgently. It's me, Danielle. I haven't stopped thinking about you. I know you're in danger. I can help, but you need to trust me. Claire's eyes filled with tears. She opened her mouth but then froze. James was already striding back inside. Quickly, Danielle placed a folded receipt on the table. On it, she had scribbled her phone number. Call me, Danielle whispered before rushing away. That night, Danielle's phone buzzed with an unknown number. Her heart leapt as she answered. Danielle? A faint voice whispered. It was Claire. She was crying, her words shaky. He's not what people think he is. He doesn't just yell. He hurts me. And if I leave, he'll find me. He always finds me. Danielle's chest tightened. Claire, listen to me. You're not alone. I've already spoken to a journalist. If you're willing, we can tell your story. We can protect you. There was silence on the other end. Then Claire whispered, if he finds out I called you, he'll kill me. Danielle's heart sank. Then we'll make sure he never does. The next morning, Danielle met Ethan in a quiet diner. She played him the recording again, then told him about Claire's call. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes burning with determination. This is it. If Claire agrees to speak on record, even anonymously, it'll blow this wide open. We'll expose him, but Danielle, you need to be careful. James has connections. If he finds out what you're doing, I already know what he's capable of, Danielle interrupted. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. And I'm not stopping. That night, Danielle received another text. This time, it wasn't a warning. It was a photo, her apartment building, taken from the street. Danielle's stomach dropped. Whoever sent it knew exactly where she lived. Then another message came through. Last chance. Her hands trembled, but her resolve hardened. She forwarded the message to Ethan. The more they try to scare me, she muttered, the more I know I'm right. 2 days later, Danielle's phone rang again. Claire's voice was trembling but determined. I'll do it, she whispered. I'll tell the truth. But you have to promise me. Promise me you'll help me get out first. Danielle's throat tightened. I promise. Claire gave her details. James would be out late at a business event the next night. She would sneak out for just 10 minutes to meet Danielle. 10 minutes that could change everything. The next night, Danielle waited in her car down the street from James's estate, her heart pounding. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every passing car made her flinch. Then she saw her, Claire, slipping through a side gate, her movements frantic and desperate. She rushed to Danielle's car, climbed in, and shut the door. For the first time, Danielle saw her up close. The bruises were worse than she imagined, faint marks on her arms, a cut near her lip. Her hands shook as she clutched her belly. Drive, Claire whispered, tears streaming down her face. Danielle hit the gas. They drove in silence until they reached a quiet parking lot on the edge of town. Claire finally looked at Danielle, her voice breaking. You don't understand. James, he'll never let me go. And if he finds out what I'm about to tell you, he won't just come after me. He'll come after you too. Danielle's breath caught as Claire leaned closer, her next words barely audible. The truth about James is worse than you think. You've waited for the truth. You've followed Danielle from that one spilled glass of wine, all the way here. But now, Claire is ready to speak. And what she reveals about James Whitmore isn't just about abuse. It's about power, corruption, and a secret so dark it could destroy him completely. This isn't just the end of the story. This is the moment everything changes. In the quiet parking lot, Claire's hands trembled as she gripped Danielle's arm. You don't understand, she whispered, her voice breaking. James doesn't just hurt me. He controls everything. The police, the lawyers, even the press. Everyone is on his payroll. That's why no one stops him. Danielle's stomach twisted. Claire, what has he done? Claire's tears streamed down her face. He's done worse than anyone. Knows. He's hurt other women before me. Paid them off. Silenced them. Some of them disappeared. And if I don't play the perfect wife, if I don't smile at his galas and pose for his pictures, he'll do the same to me. Danielle's breath caught. This wasn't just an abusive husband. This was a predator with power. Claire leaned closer, her voice trembling. And there's more. James is hiding money, millions, in shell companies. He's laundering it through charities, the same charities where he parades me around like a trophy. If anyone ever uncovers it, he's finished. That's why he'll never let me go. Because I know too much. Danielle's chest tightened. This was bigger than she ever imagined. Claire wasn't just in danger because she was his wife. She was in danger because she was the only one who knew his darkest secret. Danielle called Ethan immediately. When he heard Claire's voice shaking over the phone, he knew they finally had what they needed. Listen, Ethan said firmly. If we do this, we do it right. We record her testimony. We back it up with documents, with evidence. Once it's public, James can't touch her, not without looking guilty. But until then, you two need to be careful, very careful. Claire nodded weakly, wiping her tears. I don't care what happens to me anymore. I just don't want my baby growing up in his house. Danielle's eyes burned with tears. Then we'll make sure your baby never has to. They met Ethan the next day in a hidden office space. Claire spoke for over an hour, pouring out everything, James's violence, his threats, the financial crimes she'd seen firsthand. Ethan recorded it all, his face grim. But just as they finished, Claire's phone buzzed. It was a message from James. Where are you? Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. He knows, she whispered. He always knows. Danielle's stomach dropped. Somehow, James had sensed something was wrong. Ethan urged them to leave through the back just in case. Danielle gripped Claire's arm, helping her out the rear door and into the alley. That's when they saw it. The black SUV parked at the curb, engine running. A figure sat in the driver's seat, watching. Claire's knees buckled. He found us. Danielle's pulse thundered. No, not this time. She pulled Claire into her car, tires screeching as they sped away. The SUV roared to life behind them, headlights burning in the rearview mirror. It was a chase now. Danielle's heart pounded as she weaved through traffic, every instinct screaming to keep Claire safe. But no matter where she turned, the SUV stayed on their tail. Claire sobbed in the passenger seat, clutching her belly. He won't stop. He'll never stop. Danielle's eyes burned with determination. Then we don't stop either. She swerved suddenly, pulling into the parking lot of a crowded police precinct. The SUV hesitated at the entrance, then peeled away into the night. Danielle slammed the brakes, her chest heaving. For the first time, they were safe, at least for now. The very next morning, Ethan released the story. Claire's testimony, the audio recording of the threat, documents she'd smuggled out of James's office. The internet exploded. Headlines spread like wildfire. Golden boy James Whitmore, exposed in abuse and corruption scandal. Wife speaks out. He will hurt me. For once, James's money and power couldn't bury the truth. The world was watching. Police surrounded James's estate within hours. His SUV was seized, his accounts frozen. Reporters swarmed the gates demanding answers. Claire, hidden in a safe house, held Danielle's hand as the news played on TV. Tears streamed down her face. It's over. For the first time in years. It's really over. Danielle squeezed her hand. No, Claire. It's just the beginning. Now you and your baby get to live free. But just as Danielle let out a breath of relief, her phone buzzed again. An unknown number. A new message. You think James was the only one? You have no idea what you've started. Danielle's blood ran cold. Because maybe the truth about James Whitmore was only the beginning. And that's the end of this chapter, but maybe not the end of the story. Because when you pull one thread of corruption, sometimes you uncover an entire web. So tell me, what would you have done if you were Danielle? Walk away or risk everything to save a stranger? And if you want to know what happens when one secret leads to another, stay tuned. The story might not be over yet.